For the past 3 freaking years, I've been basically subsidizing my sister Chloe and her fiancé Ethan. Yeah, you read that right. Subsidizing, like paying their rent. Except it wasn't really rent because I wasn't living with them. It was complicated. Let's rewind. About 3 years ago, Chloe and Ethan were in deep financial trouble, over their heads in debt, drowning in bills, the whole 9 yards. They were too proud to ask for help. I could see it in their eyes every time we talked. At the time, I had just landed a teaching gig at the local high school. Yeah, teacher's salary. Not exactly rolling in it, but I was single, no kids, and honestly, I felt like I could swing it. What are siblings for, right? I offered to help them out, just until they got back on their feet. A temporary arrangement. I told them I'd spot them $800 a month. That temporary arrangement? It stretched, and stretched, and stretched. 1 month became 6. 6 turned into a year, and suddenly, 3 years had flown by. 3 years of me sending them that sweet, sweet $800 every month, without fail. I'm not gonna lie, it was a tight squeeze. I'm not exactly Mr. Moneybags over here. I had to adjust my entire freaking life around it. No big purchases, no fancy vacations. Ramen noodles were practically a food group for a while there. I cut back on everything. Everything, all to keep them afloat. But I didn't complain. Not really. Family first, right? That was always the motto. I figured, I'm doing the right thing. Sucking it up now for the long-term benefit of people I theoretically love. I thought it made me a good person. Then came the wedding announcement. Finally! After all this time, they were tying the knot. And honestly, a tiny part of me secretly, selfishly hoped this meant the gravy train was about to end. Maybe, just maybe, they'd tell me they didn't need my help anymore. Spoiler alert, that's not how it happened. Instead, Chloe called me, all bubbly and excited, and asked if I could contribute to the wedding expenses. I'll never forget that call. It was like a slap in the face. I swear. I paused for a full 10 seconds before I could even choke out a response. Chloe, I finally managed to say, my voice a little strained. I already send you $800 a month. I can't do more than that. Silence. Just silence. I don't know what she expected me to say. Maybe she thought I'd just magically conjure up more money. But I had to draw the line somewhere. I mean, seriously, where does it end? So yeah, I said no, and things got awkward. Aite for thinking I shouldn't have to fund their entire freaking existence forever? Stay tuned, because it gets so much worse. Okay, so you know how I left you hanging with the wedding expenses thing. Buckle up, because that's just the appetizer. The main course, served piping hot with a side of betrayal. Fast forward 2 months, my dad's birthday, big family reunion at grandma's house. The usual chaos. Mountains of food, kids running around like maniacs, my Uncle Gary arguing with everyone about whose barbecue sauce is superior. It's his, but don't tell him I said that. The whole shebang. Chloe and Ethan rolled up, looking like they didn't have a single worry in the world. Smiling, laughing, acting like they hadn't just tried to hit me up for more money. We were all in high spirits, sharing drinks, telling old family stories. You know, the usual. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Towards the end of the evening, my grandma, bless her heart, came over and gently touched my arm. Liam, honey, she said quietly, can we talk outside for a minute? I didn't think much of it. Grandma's known for her little heart-to-hearts. Sometimes it's life advice, sometimes just an encouraging word. I figured she was gonna try and nudge me about settling down. She's been on my back about this for a long time. When are you gonna meet a nice girl and start a family, Liam? It's her favorite line. We stepped out onto the porch, where it was quieter. She looked around, making sure no one was within earshot. Then she said something that hit me like a freaking freight train. They made fun of you, she said in a low voice, her eyes filled with pity. Who? I asked, frowning. I didn't know what she was talking about. Chloe and Ethan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They laughed behind your back. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What? They think you're stuck in life, she continued, her gaze unwavering, that you'll never have a family of your own, that you're wasting your time trying to help them. Each word was like a punch to the gut. "They joke about how much you sacrifice," she added, her voice laced with disgust. "While you live alone and struggle as a teacher." The knot in my stomach tightened into a hard, painful lump. I couldn't freaking believe it. I had sacrificed so much for them. 3 years of my life. And this was how they saw me? Some kind of loser to be pitied and laughed at? I stood there in silence, absorbing her words. My mind was racing. They said what? To whom? I was dying to know all the details, but I couldn't even formulate a coherent question. The whole situation felt like an out-of-body experience. Grandma looked at me with sad, knowing eyes. "Liam, you're a good man," she said softly, reaching out and squeezing my hand. "But you don't have to let them treat you like this. They're taking advantage of your goodness." I nodded, still stunned. What was I supposed to do with this information? Confront them in front of everyone? Ruin the evening? No. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. Instead, I went back inside, plastered a smile on my face, and acted as if nothing was wrong. I even clinked glasses with Ethan as we toasted Dad's birthday. But inside, everything had changed. Everything. The scales had fallen from my eyes. I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. They thought I was a joke? Fine. Let's see how funny things get when the money stops coming in. I wasn't going to lose my cool. I'd play it smart, keep things classy. But they were about to learn that Liam Daniels wasn't a pushover. What do I do now, Reddit? How do I handle this? I feel like I'm sitting on a ticking time bomb. The morning after Dad's birthday party, I woke up early, still reeling from what Grandma had told me. The whole thing felt surreal, like some twisted nightmare I couldn't shake off. Part of me wanted to call Chloe right then and there and unleash all my pent-up rage. Scream at her, demand an explanation, let her know exactly how much she had hurt me. But I resisted. I knew that would be a mistake. I needed time to think, to formulate a plan, to decide exactly how I was going to handle this ticking time bomb. Instead, I went through my usual routine. Coffee, lesson plans, grading papers, business as usual. I had to maintain the facade. About a week later, I got a call from Chloe. "Hey Liam, just checking in," she said, her voice all cheerful, like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't been gleefully dissecting my pathetic life with her fiancé just days before. "Hey," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I was trying my best to sound normal, but inside, my blood was boiling. She started rambling on about wedding plans, flowers, guest lists, some problem with the caterer, the usual wedding BS. I let her talk for a while, just listening, trying to gauge her mood. Then she casually dropped the bomb. "Oh, and Ethan was wondering if you could send this month's contribution a little early. We have a few things coming up." I swear I had to force myself not to laugh. The audacity. "Yeah, about that," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside me. "I'm actually going through some financial stuff myself. I won't be able to send the money this month." There was a pause. A long, pregnant pause filled with unspoken questions and simmering tension. "Wait," she said, her voice suddenly tight. "You mean just this month, right? You'll still help us after that?" I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment of truth. "I don't know, Chloe," I said, my voice as calm as I could manage. "I've been helping you for 3 years. I might need to focus on my own situation for a while." Silence. An even longer, more deafening silence than before. I could practically feel her anger radiating through the phone. "Liam, are you serious?" she finally asked, her voice dangerously low. "We're counting on this money." "Yeah, well," I retorted, unable to keep the bitterness from seeping into my voice. I was counting on my family not laughing behind my back. Another long silence. This time it was laced with shock. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. She knew exactly what I was talking about. Instead of apologizing or trying to explain, she just gave a stiff, "Okay," and quickly ended the call. That was the beginning of the fallout. The first domino to fall in what I suspected would be a long, messy chain reaction. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Chloe again, but I knew something was brewing. I could feel it in my gut. Then, one night, my mom called me out of the blue. "Liam," she began, and I could tell she wasn't happy. "I just talked to Chloe. She says you stopped helping her with her bills." "What's going on?" "Here we go. Am I the bad guy for cutting them off?" Mom made it sound like I was abandoning them in their time of need. Mom, I sighed, trying to keep my voice even. I've been sending them $800 a month for 3 years. It's not like I owe them anything. I have my own life to deal with. Well, yeah, but they're family, she said, her voice laced with that familiar blend of guilt and obligation. And Chloe said you've been acting distant. Did she also mention that they've been making fun of me behind my back? I shot back, unable to contain my frustration. That shut her up for a second. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. What are you talking about? She finally asked, her voice laced with confusion. I told her what Grandma had told me. I laid it all out, the whole sorry story of their backstabbing and mockery. For a moment, there was nothing but stunned silence on the other end of the line. I could practically hear her processing the information, trying to reconcile the image of her perfect daughter with the reality of her behavior. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer this time. Liam, I had no idea, she said. I'm so sorry. You've done more for them than anyone could have expected. If they're treating you like this, I understand why you're upset. It was a relief to hear her say that, to have her acknowledge the injustice of the situation. But I knew things were about to get ugly. Sure enough, a few days later, Ethan called me, out of the blue. Hey, Liam, he said, his tone forced and polite, the kind of politeness that screams, I'm trying really hard not to punch you. Yeah? I replied, keeping my cool. Chloe's really upset, he said. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Is that right? I said, my voice flat. Yeah, man, I don't know where you're getting these ideas, but we've never said anything bad about you. You've been great to us. Oh, really? Oh, so Grandma just made that up? I asked bluntly, cutting through the BS. Ethan stammered for a second. I could practically hear him scrambling for an excuse. Look, if she said something, it was probably twisted. You know how old people can exaggerate. I didn't buy it for a second. Not even a fraction of a second. You know what, Ethan? I said, my voice hardening. Let's not pretend. I'm done with the money. You guys are on your own. I hope the wedding goes well. I hung up before he could argue. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I was done listening to their lies. But the real kicker? The twist that made my jaw drop? That came a few days later. I got a call from Grandma herself. Liam, honey, she said, her voice laced with urgency. Can you come over? I have something to show you. Curious and more than a little apprehensive, I went over to her house. She led me into her study and handed me an old family photo album. I was going through some things and found these, she said with a small smile. I flipped through the pages, old photos of me, Chloe, and Ethan as kids, the usual family snapshots. But then my eyes caught something unexpected. A letter tucked between the pages. It was old, faded. The paper was yellowed with age. It was dated over 20 years ago, before I was even born. Grandma, what is this? I asked, pulling it out. Read it, she said softly. The letter was from my late grandfather, a man I barely remembered, and it mentioned something that made my head spin. A secret trust fund. This is getting insane. What's in the letter? Why did Grandma wait to show it to me? What do I do now? My late grandfather had apparently set up a secret trust fund for his grandchildren to be divided equally. That's what the letter stated anyway. But there was a catch, a big one. The letter went on to say, Atay, unless one is found to be abusing the family bond. My blood ran cold. Emma and Ethan don't know about this, Grandma said quietly, her eyes fixed on my face. But I think you should. I sat back, stunned. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about family, about betrayal, about a lot of things. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, still trying to process the information. Grandma gave me a knowing look. Because I want you to understand something, she said. You're not the failure they make you out to be. You've worked hard, sacrificed for others, and shown more integrity than most people ever would. She paused, her gaze softening. This fund, it was meant to reward people like you. I nodded slowly, taking in her words. I didn't want to rush into anything. I didn't know what to do with this new information, but it felt good. Good to know that I had some hidden leverage, maybe. Over the next week, the drama escalated. The pot was stirring and a horrible smell was rising from the depths. I began to hear through the family grapevine that Chloe and Ethan were panicking. I guess cutting off their monthly allowance had hit them harder than I thought. Ethan's hours at work had been cut. Chloe was having trouble paying some of the wedding vendors. Their financial ship was sinking fast. I thought they might try to get by, but instead, they started trying to guilt other family members into giving them money. It backfired spectacularly. My mom, bless her heart, mentioned to one of her sisters that I'd been supporting Chloe and Ethan financially for years. Word spread quickly. Soon, everyone in the family knew. My Aunt Laura, who doesn't hold back, apparently tore into Chloe at a family gathering I wasn't even at. "You let Liam pay your bills for 3 years, and now you're playing the victim. Are you serious?" she reportedly yelled, much to the shock of my sister. Chloe called me afterward, furious. "What the hell, Liam? Did you tell everyone about the money?" she hissed. "No," I said calmly. "You brought this on yourself." "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is?" she whined. "Chloe," I said, my voice hardening, "I think you have bigger problems than embarrassment. Maybe take a look in the mirror and ask yourself why you thought it was okay to treat me like a joke." She didn't have an answer. I thought that would be the end of it. A little embarrassing but manageable. How naive I was. But Ethan decided to escalate things. He must have been desperate, because he actually showed up unannounced at my school one afternoon. This is wild. A trust fund, family members fighting, and now Ethan at my job? What fresh hell is this? What could he possibly want? Ethan waited for me in the parking lot, leaning against his beat-up Honda Civic, looking like a cornered animal. "Liam, we need to talk," he said, trying to sound calm, but I could see the seething anger just below the surface. "About what?" I asked, crossing my arms. I wasn't about to make this easy for him. "Look, man, Chloe's been crying non-stop," he said, his voice strained. "People are turning against us. We just want to make things right." "Oh, they want to make things right now, do they?" After 3 years of taking my money and laughing behind my back, I shook my head. "No thanks, Ethan. I'm done being your safety net." His face flushed. "You act like we wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice rising. "It wasn't like that." "Then how was it, Ethan?" I interrupted, my voice sharp. "Explain to me how mocking someone who helped you isn't meant to hurt them." He didn't have a good answer. Instead, he mumbled something about how it was all a misunderstanding and stormed off. Later that night, I got a call from my father. He rarely gets involved in family drama, so I knew this was serious. "Liam," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "I had a long talk with Chloe and Ethan. They're struggling right now, but they regret the way they treated you." "That's nice," I said flatly, "but I'm not interested in fixing things right now. They need to work out their own problems." Dad sighed. "Look, I'm not saying you're wrong. You've been more than generous, but maybe it's time to sit down and have a real talk with them. Clear the air." I thought for a moment. Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I was being too stubborn. "I'll think about it," I finally said. But deep down, I wasn't in a forgiving mood. They had used me for years. They'd have to prove they deserved a second chance, and I wasn't going to make it easy for them. About a week after my dad's call, I got an invitation. Handwritten, which was weird. It was from Chloe. She wanted me to meet her and Ethan at a coffee shop near their house for what she called a family meeting. I debated whether to go. Part of me wanted to tell them to shove it, but curiosity got the better of me. I figured I'd hear them out, even though I wasn't expecting much. I walked in, the smell of coffee filling my senses. It was almost empty when I arrived. Emma and Jared were already there, and looking a little too rehearsed. Emma had that fake smile plastered on her face, and Jared was fidgeting with his phone. "Hey, thanks for coming," Emma said as I sat down. "Sure, what's this about?" I asked, keeping it short. Emma took a deep breath. "Okay." She looked like she was about to do something she wasn't proud of. "What are Chloe and Ethan planning?" A family meeting sounds ominous. Are they really going to try to apologize? Or is this some kind of trap? I can't shake the feeling that something's about to go down. "Look, we just want to apologize," Emma said, her voice sounding a little too practiced. "We shouldn't have talked about you like that. It was wrong, and we're really sorry." Ethan nodded and chimed in. "We were stressed out and made some bad jokes. We didn't mean any of it seriously." I sat back and studied them. It all felt too smooth, too scripted, like they had rehearsed this apology in front of a mirror 100 times. Okay, I said, my voice carefully neutral, but let me ask you something. If Grandma hadn't told me, would you have ever apologized? They froze. For a second, their carefully constructed facade cracked. Emma looked at Ethan, who quickly spoke up. Of course we would have, eventually. I chuckled. Right, sure. They shifted uncomfortably in their seats, and that's when Emma dropped the real reason for the meeting. Liam, she said carefully, her voice taking on a pleading tone, we need a favor. There it was. I almost laughed out loud. I knew there was something more to this. Let me guess, I said, raising an eyebrow. You need money. Not exactly, Emma said hesitantly. We need you to co-sign a loan for us. I stared at her as if she'd grown a second head. Are you serious? We've hit a rough patch, Ethan jumped in, his voice laced with desperation. We just need some help refinancing the house. If you co-sign, we'll get a better rate and we can do the rest. You wouldn't have to pay anything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've got to be kidding me, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. You think I'm going to put my name on a loan for you after everything that's happened? Are you even listening to yourselves right now? Emma's face flushed. We're not trying to take advantage of you, she said, her voice rising. We're trying to make things right. I shook my head in disbelief. You don't fix things by asking for more handouts, I said, my voice hardening. You fix things by taking responsibility for your own lives. Ethan slammed his hand down on the table, making the coffee cups rattle. You're being unreasonable, Liam. We're family, I laughed bitterly. Exactly, and family doesn't treat each other like dirt. I got up, threw a few dollars on the table for my coffee, and walked out without another word. I was done. Done with their lies, their manipulations, their endless demands. But little did I know, the worst was yet to come. A co-signed loan? Seriously? The audacity is mind-blowing. What will they do when I refuse? And what's next? This family drama is spiraling out of control. A few days later, the unexpected bombshell dropped. Grandma called me, sounding shaken. Liam, you need to come over right away. It's important, she said, her voice trembling slightly. My heart pounded in my chest as I drove over to her house. What now? What fresh hell was about to be unleashed? When I arrived, she handed me an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter from the bank, about the trust fund. Apparently, Chloe and Ethan had somehow gotten wind of it, and they were trying to claim a larger share, arguing that I had withheld family assets. I'm shaking. You have to be joking. Withhold what? How? They went to a lawyer, Grandma said, her voice quivering with anger. They say you hid the trust fund from them, even though you didn't know about it until recently. I was stunned. You've got to be kidding me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. They're desperate, Liam, she said. They're grasping at straws, but this is low, even for them. Then it hit me. They weren't just struggling, they were sinking, and now they were willing to throw me under the bus to save themselves. I'm not going to let them get away with this, I said firmly, my voice hardening with resolve. They've crossed the line. Grandma smiled a little sadly. Good, she said. It's about time someone taught them a lesson. I wasn't done being blindsided, though. The universe was determined to keep throwing curveballs my way. The next morning, I got a call from a lawyer, representing Chloe and Ethan. I braced myself for a nasty fight. I figured I'd be spending the next few months in court, battling my own sister and her fiancé over a trust fund I didn't even know existed until recently. But the lawyer sounded surprisingly apologetic. Mr. Daniels, he said, his voice calm and professional. I wanted to let you know that my clients have decided to withdraw their lawsuit. I blinked, taken aback. Withdraw their claim. Why? There was an awkward pause. Let's just say some new information has come to light regarding their financial situation. I think they realized they were in no position to pursue it legally. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened. What could have possibly scared them off so quickly? Later that day, I heard from Aunt Laura. Apparently, Ethan had been fired from his job after someone anonymously reported that he'd been embezzling small amounts of company money. To make matters worse, the bank had rejected their loan application outright, citing credit concerns. Karma had hit them hard, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. They're suing me over a trust fund, and then withdraw the claim? What the heck? A few days after the fiasco with the trust fund claim, I was still processing everything. It felt like I was living in a soap opera. The drama was relentless. Then, without warning, Emma texted me. "We need to talk. Please," she wrote. I ignored her. I was done talking, done listening to her excuses. The next day, she showed up at my apartment. Without warning, I was pulling into my parking spot after a long day at school when I saw her. Pacing outside my building, looking anxious and desperate. I sighed, but got out of the car. I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. "What do you want, Emma?" I asked, already exhausted. She looked exasperated. "Liam, I didn't know Ethan was going to take it this far with the lawyer. I swear I didn't want it to happen." "Oh, really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "So you were just a passive observer while your fiancé tried to screw me over with that trust fund?" She looked down at her feet and didn't deny it. "I'm sorry, okay?" she said, her voice small. "We've just been under so much pressure. The wedding costs, the house, everything is falling apart." "You know whose fault that is, right?" I shot back, unable to contain my anger. "Maybe you wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't relied on me for so many years." She winced, but then, surprisingly, said, "You're right." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "But I don't have anyone else to turn to." I stared at her in disbelief. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I'm done. I gave you years of my life, thousands of dollars, and all you did was laugh behind my back. Now you come here and expect me to save you again?" "Liam, you're my brother," she said quietly. "We're supposed to look out for each other." "Yeah? What was that support when you and Ethan made fun of me? When you tried to steal from me?" She didn't have an answer. I shook my head. "Emma, I'm done," I said, my voice firm. "This is the last conversation we're going to have about money or trust funds or anything else. I don't want anything more to do with you and Ethan." Her eyes widened. "You can't just cut me off like that. We're family." "Watch me," I said, turning and walking into my apartment building. I left her standing there alone and desperate. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. But enough was enough. I had to protect myself. I had to break free from this toxic cycle. Is this really the end? I feel a twinge of guilt, but I know I did the right thing. How do I move on from this? Can I ever forgive her? The next day, Grandma called me. In our family, nothing stays a secret for long. She'd heard everything. About Emma showing up at my apartment. About the lawsuit. About the years of financial support. "Liam, I want you to know something," she said, her voice strong and clear. "I've decided I'm not going to talk to Emma or Ethan anymore. At least not for a long time." I was surprised. "Grandma, you don't have to do that for me," I said, feeling a pang of guilt. "I want to," she said firmly. "You've been nothing but good to them, and they tried to betray you. If they don't respect you, they don't respect me. They crossed the line, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise." Hearing that from her meant more than I could put into words. It was like she was finally validating my feelings, acknowledging that I wasn't crazy for wanting to cut them off. A few weeks later, I got another surprise. I ran into Aunt Laura at the grocery store, and she pulled me aside. "Hey," she said, giving me a warm smile. "I heard about everything that happened. I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you." "Proud of me?" I asked, confused. "Yeah," she said. "You finally stood up for yourself. Emma always had a way of manipulating people, but you didn't let her walk all over you." I shrugged. It wasn't easy, but I couldn't live like that anymore. "Well, you did the right thing," she said. "And by the way, you might want to check in with Grandma. She's making some changes to the trust fund." That caught my attention. "Changes?" Laura grinned mischievously. "Let's just say Emma and Ethan might not be included in the future plans." Sure enough, when I visited Grandma a few days later, she confirmed it. "I talked to the lawyer," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I've decided that if Emma and Ethan can't show responsibility and respect, they won't get their share of the trust." She paused, her expression hardening. "I'm giving them a chance to change, but if they don't, the trust will be divided between you and your cousins instead." I was speechless for a moment. You don't have to do that, Grandma, I said, feeling uncomfortable with the idea of benefiting from their misfortune. I don't want any of the money. She smiled, reaching out and squeezing my hand. I know, she said. That's why you deserve it. After that, I cut off all contact with Emma and Ethan. No texts, no calls, no social media. I blocked their numbers and unfollowed them on every platform. I stopped attending family gatherings where I knew they would be. I distanced myself from the drama. Slowly, things started to feel easier, lighter. I didn't realize how much of a burden I was carrying until it was finally gone. I started focusing on myself, on my teaching, on my friends, on things that made me happy. And then, the final ironic twist. I heard through the grapevine that Ethan had moved out of the house after losing his job. Their relationship was on the rocks, and Emma had to move back in with her mom. I wasn't happy about it, but I couldn't deny the sweet, bitter taste of karma.